Nature is stunning and mountains, especially so, are glorious natural formations, some of which are hundreds of millions of years old, such as the Appalachian Mountains, said to be an estimated 480 million years old. As such, it is of no surprise that various mysteries are hidden within the vast wilderness of solitary mountains. So today we'll be taking a look at 3 mountain mysteries and discoveries. Archaeologists claim Mount Sinai has been found in Saudi Arabia. Biblical experts claim they have finally uncovered the true location of Mount Sinai, one of the holiest theoretical locations in the Bible, supposedly found by the Doubting Thomas Research Foundation. The Old Testament states that Moses led the Israelites through and was given the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai. This mythical mountain has been searched for eons. Only now do Christians believe they have hunted it down. Jabal Maqla, a mountain that lies within the mountains of Jabal al-Lawz in Saudi Arabia, is believed to be that very mountain. Brian Morrow, an expert of the Middle East and the Foundation's president, states, "One of the main reasons certain scholars claim that the Exodus is a myth is because little to no evidence for what the Bible records have been found on the traditional Mount Sinai in Egypt's Sinai Peninsula. But what if these scholars have actually been looking in the wrong spot?" He believes that it makes significantly more sense for the mountain to have been in the Arabian Peninsula than the Egyptian Peninsula. The peak of Jabal Maqla has been blackened through the ages from the intensity of the sun or fire, and it is placed close to the Nuweiba beach. This is the beach where biblical scientists claim Moses led the Israelites through the sea, parting the waters with the alleged divine intervention of God. Their reason for believing this is due to land paths existing beneath the waves, suggesting that at some point in history the land was above the water level. Besides just the underwater pathways, a shape resembling a chariot was found in the undersea coral, suggesting that, just as the Bible claims, the Israelites were chased by the Egyptians on their chariots when the parted waters returned, drowning the Egyptians. More asserted evidence comes in the form of water erosion on a split rock between the beach and the would-be Mount Sinai. This is baffling since it is placed in the middle of a desert and implies that there was a strong force of water there at some point in the ancient past. To quote Morrow, "We believe this distinct landmark could be the rock that God commanded Moses to strike, which water then gushed forth from, miraculously providing for the Israelite population." Close to the site is also a graveyard, one that is believed to be where the golden calf devotees were struck for their idolism of false deities. The site is currently being investigated further, but it is possibly a biblical match that could change everything we know about history. Brown Mountain lights on North Carolina's Brown Mountain. Ghost lights can sometimes be spotted. Reports of these mysterious lights have been referenced since 1910, when electricity was first introduced to the area. George R. Mansfield, a scientist, proved that the lights were trains and car headlights in 1922, and yet some storytellers claim that the lights predate electricity. The story has many tall tales of the past, changes depending on who is telling it. A man by the name of Joseph Lovin claimed to have seen the first light in 1897, but claimed he did not speak to anyone about the strange occurrence until 1910 when C. Gregory outwardly spoke of the lights. It is important to note that in 1909 the Southern Railways started using increased candle power of 600,000. This made their lights brighter than even certain lighthouses. Strangely enough, however, the lights were reported as being red in color and described by the Charlotte Daily Observer as mysterious lights seen just above the horizon every night. Despite the belief that the lights were caused by trains when the Southern Railways had to cease sending trains around the Brown Mountain area due to flooding, the light sightings continued. The lack of locomotives did not stop the peculiar red lights. According to Joseph Lovin, a true was one that appeared to move in brightness and flare. However, once Mansfield proved that the lights were, indeed, man-made, Joseph Lovin ceased any commentary about the Brown Mountain lights for the rest of his life. In 1938, in the Asheville Citizen, there was an article about the lights as a phenomenon for Native American legend, something that was challenged as having been invented by white Americans as a way of proving the supernatural existence of the lights. Originating from the mystery of the Brown Mountain lights include that of a mother and child from the Jonas Ridge community fatally injured in cold blood. This was also the first frightful tale written about the light directly in 1936, but all sorts of Brown Mountain light ghost stories were born throughout the 20th century, such as the story of the Revolutionary Soldier from 1982 that was made popular again in 2012. When stories linking the lights to civil conflict spirits spread around the internet. Some believe the lights to be caused by extraterrestrials. Ralph Lale, a self-published UFO author, wrote a book about his alien occurrences on the mountain, including finding mummified remains of an alien. According to Lale, the aliens of Brown Mountain took him to Venus in 1965. In modernity, ghost hunters are often drawn to the lights that are still visible to this day. There is several roadside locations for the lights, including the Brown Mountain Overlook and the Green Mountain Overlook. Native Americans and Glastonbury Mountain. Glastonbury Mountain is infamous for its mysterious nature and odd occurrences and sightings of a strange creature. Ambiguous scents and unusual lights being a mere handful of the happenings that transpired on the mountain. Stories of madness and ghostly possessions arise from the mountain, with disappearances being not so uncommon for the area. The mountain was first inhabited in 1761. From the start, its settlers reported strange sounds and mysterious lights from the mountaintop. It is claimed that the Native Americans in the area regarded the mountain as the destination in which the four winds met, a place to avoid unless it was to bury their recently deceased. Countless struggles awaited the early settlers on the edge of Glastonbury Mountain. Terrible fortune befell the townsfolk that was blamed on some ancient curse. Despite all the bad, the settlers were gifted some love. As in the early 1800s, they experienced a prosperous boom in charcoal production, but by the end of the century the town was a town no longer. Families once inhabiting it moved to greener pastures, leaving behind but one remaining household. The townsfolk abandoned the mountain entirely deforested and its natural resources all spent. These days only brick kilns once used for charcoal remain amongst the grand forests, which grew back and now overwhelm the mountain. In 2003, Bennington Banner reported a sighting of a Bigfoot-esque creature seen by a Winooski man. According to the sighting, the creature was going toward the woods by Route 7 of the mountain in the edging darkness of the sunset. Although the nearby police officers assumed it would be a large bear, this was far from the first or last sighting of the monster. There have been reports of a wild man around the area since 1879, when the New York Times wrote an article about two hunters who found a monstrous creature in the forest. The creature was tall, wide-eyed, and had furry red hair, and attacked the two hunters after they shot at it, to which the hunters responded by discarding their weapons and fleeing the scene, frightened by the wild man-like animal they had never before seen in their lives. Around 40 people have disappeared around Glastonbury Mountain through the ages. The most famous missing persons cases stem from 1951 and 1942 respectively and have been dubbed the Bennington Triangle. The very first known vanished victim of the mountain, however, was a man named Henry McDowell. A bad man by some accounts, McDowell was a man who took the life of his coworker in a fight in 1892 and disappeared before authorities could arrive, never to be seen again. He was last spotted by the mountain. In the 1940s, there was a whole sequence of unsolved disappearances occurring in Glastonbury. The victims of these vanishings ranged from 8 to 74 years of age. Theories vary from supernatural happenings to malicious spirits and demons to Bigfoot and aliens to the more grounded concept of a person who takes the lives of others. In the end, little is truly known about what happened at Glastonbury Mountain in the past few centuries. But what is known is that the once deforested land now thrives with woodlands and is a popular hiking spot. The view from the mountain is breathtakingly stunning, and in recent memory the claims of strange occurrences have slowly started to decrease. Storytelling is in our blood. It's one of the very first arts we as a species developed. It's no wonder then that so many stories are created even today when it comes to urban legends and odd occurrences. But as with all myths, there is bound to be seedlings of truth. In the tall tales of spirits, supernatural mysteries, or fatalities most foul. Whether or not the truth will ever be known to us, though, remains a matter of speculation. Many claims made before our time are difficult to prove or disprove, and one's stance depends on what you personally believe. But what do you make of these mountain mysteries? From the deepest corners of the Earth to planets we haven't named yet, there are always discoveries out there waiting for you to find them. Some are amazing and others seem to defy logic. All of them keep us on our toes, with our curiosities piqued for what we might discover next. Every day it is possible to find something new and exciting, big or small, in your own back gardens or in the most extreme places on Earth. Some take us to different planets, some tell us about our history, and there are some that challenge what we thought possible of ourselves as a species and remind us of what we have and will achieve. All of them leave us eager to learn more. So today, we have 3 fascinating discoveries for you, ranging from finds dating back to thousands of years ago to experiments happening in space in the near future. The discovery of Amazonian warriors, from spectacular headdresses and spears to tales of fearless Amazonian women. We all no doubt know the myths and legends about these warriors. But now there is also evidence backing the actual existence of real-life Amazonian warriors. A dig in the eastern region of Voronezh, Russia, has extraordinarily unearthed a cluster of ancient burial pits containing what archaeologists believe to be 4 Amazonian women, buried alongside their traditional headdresses and spears. It is further speculated that these women were nomadic Scythian warriors who originated from southern Russia. The 4 skeletons were found buried in groups of 2. In one pit, it is thought that one of the women was aged between 20 and 25, with one of the others being between 12 and 13 years old. These 2 warriors were found surrounded by more than 30 iron arrowheads, pieces of horse iron hooks, knives, and animal remains. Also scattered around the burial pit were molded clay vessels and an incense burner dating back to the second half of the 4th century BC. This is all the more amazing as scientists have determined that the burial site of these 2 women had previously been ravaged by grave robbers. In the second plot, the other 2 sets of the remains were found untouched and buried in wooden graves, cushioned by grass. Here lay a 50-year-old woman decorated with a heavily engraved gold-stamped headpiece, embellished with floral ornaments and pendants. The last of our warriors is thought to have been aged between 30 and 35 and was found lying in a position as if she were riding a horse. She was equally adorned. With her was a large bronze mirror, 2 spears, and a glass bead bracelet. While fragments of similar ceremonial gear have been found before, these are the first remains to be discovered in such good condition, located near the Don River, and with the headdress actually found on the head of one of the women. It is therefore the strongest evidence we have found that these Amazonian warriors did in fact exist and were just as strong and fierce as they were suspected to be. Chinese farmer granted patent for 500-pound submarine he built in 2 months. Next, as we move to another continent, we find the story of a small-town Chinese farmer Zhang Xingwu who managed to build a small yet functional submarine in just 2 months, even securing a patent from the State Intellectual Property Office for his design. The 51-year-old Zhang from Manshan, Anhui, a province in southeast China, started out selling vegetables after graduating from high school, before going on to work as a carpenter and later in the shipping industry. He told Chinese media outlets that he had always wanted to be an inventor, and inspired by a TV show he had been watching, decided to take on the task of making a submarine while his wife was away visiting her mother. He worked on his design every night after work for the next 2 months, crafting the plates. The final product is impressive, especially considering it was made in a mere 2 months, but it is also somewhat of a tight squeeze and only reaches a speed of 7 nautical miles per hour. At only 6 meters long and 60 centimeters wide, it is barely large enough to fit a grown adult, and his submarine requires piping to supply oxygen from the surface as the vessel itself is too small to fit gas cylinders. This means, sadly, as it is currently, it is unable to go very deep under the surface. Water. Nonetheless, he received 500 pounds for his patent certificate as his submarine was officially deemed an impressive design, and he has announced that he next plans to make his very own nautical rescue boat. Either way, it sure is quite some craftsmanship to make a submarine of any size in such a short time frame. This goes to show that when you put your mind to it, you can do anything. NASA's DART spacecraft will crash into asteroid. Don't panic just yet. NASA still know what they're doing, and in fact their DART spacecraft, which stands for Double Asteroid Redirection Test, is set to crash into a targeted asteroid on purpose, all in the name of research, of course. DART will lift off on November 23rd aboard a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. In September of 2022, where NASA will deliberately route DART to crash into a planned asteroid to test their asteroid deflection technology. This will allow them to monitor how such a collision would impact the motion of a near-Earth asteroid in space to fully test for the first time the efficacy of their planetary defense technology. The near-Earth object being targeted for the crash is Dimorphos, a small moon orbiting the near-Earth asteroid Dynamos. By definition, near-Earth objects such as both of these orbit within a range of 300 million miles from Earth. Dimorphos has been chosen specifically for this experiment because its size is similar to other asteroids that could pose major threats to our own planet. The plan is for DART to crash into the asteroid at an insane speed of 14,763.8 miles per hour, with the camera on the spacecraft called Draco, helping navigation to ensure the collision happens. Scientists are expecting the impact to cause a 1% change to the speed of Dimorphos' orbit around Didymos, which, although sounds marginal, will change the overall orbit time by a period of several minutes. NASA will then be able to actually observe and measure the change from ground-based telescopes on Earth, and this will also go down in history as the first time that humans have changed and monitored the dynamics of the solar system ourselves in a careful and calculated manner. Tests like the one DART is planned to carry out are done to help NASA detect and prevent threats from space that could potentially cause serious damage to Earth. The data they gather from DART's collision will be crucial in helping their understanding of forces required to shift the orbit of a near-Earth asteroid, so that we can deflect the path of any objects that may be dangerously close to colliding with us. The Vikings had their naval defenses, the Romans had their caverers, and in 2021 NASA has outdone them by furthering our very own planetary defenses. There is so much more to learn and discover about our own planet and history, as well as what lies beyond us far into the universe. What do you make of these recent discoveries? There are many mysterious things and people in this world. Whether it is paranormal activity or natural occurrences, there's always something creepy or unusual going on. Many strange happenings take time to fully unearth. So today we'll be taking a look at 3 mysterious people. Don Decker and the devil. When someone is reportedly possessed, many believers and skeptics alike might first look for a scientific explanation for the odd happenings, and likely the explanations are there. However, the case of Don Decker, a man who was supposedly possessed by the devil, still stumps even the staunchest of skeptics and remains one of the most compelling cases in favor of the paranormal. In 1983, Donald Decker was incarcerated in the Monroe County Jail in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, for a charge of receiving stolen property. He was granted a furlough on February 24, 1983, to attend the funeral of his grandfather, James Kishoff. While this was a compassionate action on the part of the jail, Don Decker had reportedly been ill-treated by his grandfather and harbored a deep hatred for the man. After becoming angered at the outpouring of love and remorse expressed for his grandfather, Decker returned to the home of family friends Bob and Jeannie Kiefer, where he was overcome by strange feelings of confusion. He collapsed and began seeing a vision of an old man with a crown peering down at him from the window, and deep scratches appeared on his arm. When he came downstairs for dinner, the keepers noticed his scratches, and Decker told him of his episode and claimed that Satan had inflicted his wounds. Shortly after this declaration, water began dripping from the ceilings and walls, as if the ceiling were leaking from the upstairs room above. However, no cause for the water could be found despite a thorough search. In fact, there were not any water pipes in that area of the house at all. Perhaps most chilling was when the Kiefers noticed water moving up from the floor as though defying gravity. They phoned the landlord, who called the police, and 2 officers quickly reported to the scene and corroborated the reports of the strange gravity defying water seemingly coming from nowhere. When the Kiefers accused Decker, who was reportedly in a trance during these proceedings, of being possessed by Satan, pots and pans began crashing together in the kitchen, and Decker was lifted off the floor and flung against the wall. The next day, 2 more officers reported to the house to investigate further. One officer gave Decker a cross to try to banish the demon inside of him, and Decker immediately dropped it, saying that it had burned him. The officers then reported that he was again lifted off the ground and thrown forcefully against the wall as claw marks appeared on his neck. These unsettling occurrences, specifically the gravity-defying rain indoors, kept happening with no explanation even after Decker was returned to the county jail. Clergymen and even fellow prisoners who refused to be kept in the same cell as him. The rain eventually stopped when a priest performed an exorcism on Decker while he was imprisoned, but the reputation of those unsettling events has forever marked Stroudsburg as one of the most haunted places in America, and the Kiefer House has since been demolished because of the demonic events that took place there. Who is the KV-21B mummy? Ancient Egypt is known for its mummies. These preserved corpses wrapped in swathes of cloth are one of the most popularized images of the Egyptian Empire. Mummies are both creepy and fascinating. However, the mysteries that surround mummified Egyptians are both intriguing and complex. The Valley of the Kings is a sprawling plethora of ancient Egyptian burial chambers and tombs that lie below the sandy plains near Luxor, southern Egypt on the banks of the River Nile. Researchers have found roughly 65 tombs at the site, with rulers from the 18th to the 22nd dynasty buried there. The 18th dynasty in ancient Egypt spanned from around 1550 BC to 1292 BC. The most famous of the 18th dynasty rulers was Tutankhamun, or King Tut, as he is more commonly referred to. The 18th dynasty was also a groundbreaking period in the Egyptian era, being the only dynasty that had 2 women who ruled Egypt as sole pharaoh. One of these women was the Queen Nefertiti. Nefertiti was the wife of Akhenaten, the 10th pharaoh of the 18th dynasty. He is known for being heretic and abandoning the traditional religion of the Egyptians in favor of a religion called Atenism, which, as well as being named after Akhenaten, centered on the worship of the god Aten. Nefertiti's fame was propelled by her husband's controversies, but also because she is thought to be the aunt of Tutankhamun. It is rumored that Nefertiti also ruled herself for a short period after Akhenaten passed away before Tutankhamun's ascension to the throne. One of Nefertiti's daughters, called Ankhesenamun, would later marry King Tut. He and Ankhesenamun had 2 daughters at least, and this brings us to the true mystery surrounding the KV-21B mummy. Tomb KV-21 in the Valley of the Kings was discovered in 1817 and re-explored some years later in 1989. In the tomb, the researchers found 2 mummies, both in fairly poor condition but relatively intact. CT scanning and DNA analysis was carried out in 2010, and the first mummy, termed KV-21A, was discovered to contain the same DNA as Tutankhamun. In other words, KV-21A is likely to be his wife, Ankhesenamun. The tomb of Nefertiti is still yet to be officially found, but it's thought that KV-21B is her. The DNA collected from KV-21B is even less definitive, but given that other tombs in it's thought that Ankhesenamun may be buried with her mother Nefertiti. If scientists can verify the KV-21B corpse, then it would be one of the most ancient Egyptian discoveries to date. Mishu Chuchani, our final mysterious person, is Mishu Chuchani. He has also been referred to as Shoshani and was known as a Jewish teacher in Europe after World War II. There is not much that people know about the man. His real name is still unknown, even after he passed away in Uruguay in 1968. No one can also be too sure about where he was from. When the war ended, he began exploring the globe and teaching from the Torah. While his work is not known by all, his students have seen his intelligence and hope to carry on his legacy. He was vastly knowledgeable in many subjects, including science, philosophy, maths, and Talmud, which is Jewish religious law. He spent a great deal of time teaching in Paris after the war, although he left to go to Israel and then eventually ended up in South America after a brief stop. Back in Paris, many referred to him as a prodigy or genius. Ever since he passed away, people have wondered what he was about and where he came from. His followers continue to refer to themselves as his disciples. He remains a modern legend, coming and going without leaving a trace and changing people's lives for the better. It's unbelievable that to this day we don't have more information about this man who had such an impact on others. Maybe over time we will begin to discover more about this legend. After exploring the stories of these unusual men, it's not uncommon to have endless questions. Where did these men come from? What are their real names? How did they survive under the specific circumstances they endured? Although they remain a mystery, they still live on in the minds of many. All we can hope for is more answers in the future. But what do you make of these three mysterious men? Our universe is a thing of wonder. Scientists across the world have been trying to understand the workings of space for centuries. And whilst great progress has been made, there is still so much that we do not know. Every day, new things are discovered about the cosmos that our planet floats in, with new theories constantly emerging about what our world could really be a part of, or more so, who else could be out there. The millions of stars, planets, and galaxies that hang thousands of miles above us in the night sky are all part of a solar system that is believed to be around 287 billion kilometers in diameter. Naturally, this throws up big and often unanswerable questions, but thanks to modern technology, our understanding of space is growing more and more as time goes on. So today we'll be looking at truly fascinating space discoveries. Giant GRB ring in August 2015. A team of American and Hungarian astronomers discovered a ring of galaxies spreading 5.6 billion light-years across. The massive galactic ring was revealed by 9 gamma-ray bursts, and hence it was named Giant GRB ring. The researchers have estimated the distance of the ring to be around 9.1 billion light-years from Earth. GRBs, or giant gamma-ray bursts, are emitted when a dying star runs out of fuel. It eventually implodes, forming a black hole. During this process, huge quantities of energy get blasted in the form of collimated beams. And if Earth happens to align with these beams, the scientists can observe these incredibly luminous signals, which can then be used to determine the distance to the GRB as well as the location of the galaxy hosting it. That the 9 GRBs of the giant GRB ring are associated to each other as they are all located at approximately a similar distance from Earth. According to scientists, there is a huge probability that these GRBs were emitted by the same structure, and if this is the case, this would be yet another structure that contradicts the current models of the universe. In spite of its supermassive size, the giant GRB ring is not the largest known structure in the observable universe. That title goes to the next structure on this list. Hercules Corona Borealis Great Wall. The largest known structure in the observable universe is Hercules Corona Borealis Great Wall. This unimaginably massive object is a galactic filament comprising of a vast group of galaxies bound by gravity. This massive cluster of galaxies is estimated to be about 10 billion light-years across. Astronomers determined the size of the gigantic structure by mapping the gamma-ray bursts emitted from it. Hercules Corona Borealis Great Wall was discovered in November 2013. It exceeds the size of huge LQG by more than 2 times. Astronomers detected 19 GRBs from the structure. The gamma-ray bursts were discovered in the direction of the Hercules and the Corona Borealis constellations. Therefore, the structure was named the Hercules Corona Borealis Great Wall. According to John Aquila, one of the astrophysicists behind the discovery of Herc Great Wall, the structure is larger than the theoretical upper limit on how big the universal structures can be. But the discovery of this structure has truly confused scientists about the cosmological principle. John Herkiller believes that there is still a chance that sooner or later astronomers will find a structure even bigger than the Herc Great Wall. Scientists believe the size of the observable universe to be approximately 93 billion light-years. This means that the Herc Great Wall that spreads approximately 10 billion light-years across is about 10% of the observable universe. Another mind-blowing fact about this gigantic structure is that it is located at a distance of more than 10 billion light-years from Earth, and it is believed that it came into existence only 3 to 4 billion years after the Big Bang. Researchers believe that this gigantic structure consists of billions of galaxies. This means that there could be potentially trillions of stars and planets within this gigantic structure. The chemical and biological possibilities that lie within this structure are endless. The rate the universe is expanding. Astronomers have discovered something interesting while using NASA's Hubble Space Telescope. They have said that recent findings have allowed them to measure the universe's expansion rate. For those unaware, the universe is getting bigger every second. But the big questions are why and how. The space between galaxies is forever growing. But what this recent study has shown researchers is that the modern universe is expanding faster than we expect. This is based on when the universe was first formed 13 billion years ago. One of the issues with space is we really don't understand how it works, with some scientists coming forward and saying that the human brain can't comprehend its size. Researchers have said the universe is expanding 5% to 9% faster than expected. One of the scientists said the following, that make up to 95% of everything and don't emit light, such as dark energy, dark matter, and dark radiation. These results were published in an upcoming issue of the Astrophysical Journal. Twin brother experiment. Definitely seen as one of the strangest findings discovered on that of the International Space Station are the tests conducted by the National Aeronautics and Space Administration to better understand the effects of long-term space inhabitation that was given the name of the twin brother experiment. The experiment was referred to as the twin brother experiment due to the fact that NASA scientists sent up an astronaut of whom had a twin brother that they could use as a comparison of information compared to the astronaut brother of whom would be spending close to a year in space. After his time up in space, the astronaut went through a battery of tests to show any kind of differences, degradations, or changes in his overall anatomy to help explain the effects of long-term space habitation and prepare for eventual long-term space travel or colonization efforts. After using more than 10 different research teams to conduct experiments on measuring large numbers of metabolites, cytokines, and proteins, the research study found a strange effect that space had on gene expression. The teams found that though 93% of the genome from the brother that was in space returned to normal upon landing back on Earth, there appeared to be changes in more than 7% of his DNA that led to changes in the health of his immune system, DNA repair, bone formation networks, hypoxia, and hypercapnia. This meant that after the one-year mission, the twin was more than affected by the cosmic radiation in space that led to dramatic changes in his gene expression, as well as manifested illnesses in his life. These changes didn't revert back to normalcy for another 6 months after landing back on Earth, and leads many to believe that it could very well be possible to have permanent genetic damage due to longer exposure to cosmic radiation, regardless of the shielding of the capsules and the effects zero gravity have on the astronauts aboard the ISS TRAPPIST-1D discovered within the TRAPPIST-1 system that made headlines from all around the world. TRAPPIST-1D was one of the many exoplanets found orbiting a star very similar in heat and size to our own Sun, that led many research scientists to believe that many of the planets orbiting around the Sun to be Earth-like habitable planets and ideal for future colonization of a solar system. The most exciting prospect of this discovery was not only the planets, however, but rather the distance the system is from our own solar system, being only a mere 39.6 light-years away from us, making it an interstellar neighbor with a much easier point of access. In fact, previous efforts in developments of space technologies, such as that of the Orion nuclear-powered spacecraft, could see the journey to the TRAPPIST-1 system met in as little as one generation of passengers and accomplished in a short 60 years. This very well means that efforts could be started right now to begin interstellar colonization with current space technologies without any additional stress of developments already being performed. The TRAPPIST-1D planet in orbit around the Sun-like star of the TRAPPIST system also appears to be cooler than that of our own Earth and far richer in composition of precious metals, a rocky surface, a low gravity for easy takeoff, and an atmosphere filled with dense water vapor for colonization efforts. However, given the planet's size, mass, and density, it is theorized to have a weak electromagnetic field which would not help to shield colonization efforts from damaging cosmic radiation, similarly seen on our neighboring planet Mars. But even if the planet turns out to be incompatible with future colonization efforts once the passengers arrive at their destination, it can be easily cannibalized for resources to build megastructure bases capable of supporting human life and assist in the efforts of terraforming and colonizing the neighboring planets. What do you make of these outer space discoveries? And the question is, what will they find next? Our world is still very much a mystery. Each day strange things are discovered, showing us that we still have a lot to learn about the things around us. One photograph that's doing the rounds on social media is this one, and it allegedly shows a huge object moving along the sands of the Sahara Desert. Those who spotted this strange object questioned how something so large could move such a distance. One user suggested that this large object might be a stone, and that it fell from one of the nearby mountains and caused this large skid mark. The issue is when measuring the skid mark, it goes on for over 981 meters, leaving some to question whether wind will be able to carry this object such a long distance. Another user said the following: "Could this have come from space? To me, it looks like it could be a meteorite, and the trail behind it was caused when the object came crashing to the ground." End quote. This may not be such a far-fetched idea. After all, one of the oldest meteorites ever discovered was found in the Sahara Desert, with scientists estimating that the space rock was over 4.6 billion years old. The researchers have said that the meteorite will be able to shed some light on the early solar system. Initial studies in 2021 revealed that the chunk was actually from a protoplanet and that it formed before Earth. It seems that the Sahara Desert is a hotspot for these early space objects, as another meteorite was found in the Sahara Desert by a team of researchers. Dr. Jutta Zipfel from the Max Planck Institute for Chemistry revealed that this was a Martian and that this was an important discovery because it was the first Martian meteorite found in the Sahara Desert. Others who saw the photographs suggested more out there theories, saying that it could be an advanced craft that crashed into the ground, noting that the object itself doesn't look like a rock or part of the nearby mountains, saying that whatever this thing is must have been big because the width of the skid mark is over 40 meters. Interestingly, as some have pointed out, the area where the skid mark starts shows no sign of a mountain or raised area, which has led some to say that if this was a rock from a mountain, you'd see the mountain along with a chunk missing. But we can't see that in any of the photos. As of right now, these photographs are still generating discussions online, with people confused as to how such a large structure would be able to slide across the Sahara Desert. Those who put forward the idea of the object moving via the use of ice sheets or wet areas should note that on average the Sahara gets between 0 and 2 inches of rain per year, although some locations go without rain for several years. Although this explanation may seem like the most likely answer, it's unlikely that such a large object would be able to move across the sands of the Sahara with so little water. Even this theory is disputed among researchers, with some saying that more data is needed, and noting that the stones that had been moved via water are very small, under 20 inches in diameter. The object just photographed in the Sahara Desert measures in at over 84 meters in length. As some have pointed out as well, let's say that this object is a rock. Natural crushed rocks that measure between 10 and 20 inches were approximately 1.1 tons per cubic meter, with solid rock measuring in at 2.5 to 3 tons per cubic meter. One user said the following: "I'm not saying that this is something mysterious, but how could such a large object be moved by wind or rain? On top of this, there's no mountain behind it that this could have fallen from. If this object was coming from the other side, where there's visible mountains, then we could say that this was a large rock. But again, that doesn't explain how such a large rock was able to slide almost 1,000 meters on sand. This is one of those situations where the more you think about it, the stranger it gets." End quote. This isn't the first time that rocks have been seen moving on their own. Although the sliding rocks in Death Valley are nowhere near the sides of the object I just spoke about, the Death Valley sailing stones are a strange phenomenon recorded nowhere else on the face of the earth. It appears at different times of the day. The rocks will begin to move and inscribe long tracks along the smooth valley floor without any human or animal intervention. There are many different hypotheses of explanations that may be causing the movement of the stones. At times these lines can move straight for long distances, turn around or turn 90-degree angles. Many researchers believe that the movement of the rocks could be caused by a balance of very specific conditions. The naturally formed allow the rocks to slowly glide by using the frozen sheets of ice beneath them, and the perfect wind conditions the valley creates against the stones. Oddly enough, no definitive proof of the movement of the stones exists. There are no recordings or direct monitoring of the rocks as they're moving. This has led some to believe that perhaps there is another mechanism at play for the movement of these stones, contributing to the idea of ley lines and strange electromagnetic properties seen at specific points around the world. This theory might actually prove to be legitimate, as researchers found that as seen in other areas around the world, and research into the event has proven that the rocks were not moved via any mechanisms of buoyancy regarding 2014 data, with research into the matter and other evidence that the natural materials found within the stones could be magnetic and manipulated by electromagnetic properties. So what do you make of these interesting photos? What do you think it shows? And how do you think it was able to move so far? Drones are affordable devices that can give you a bird's eye view of the area around you. In recent years, drones have become incredibly sophisticated, and due to their advanced tech, some companies are even using them during disasters. Back on the 19th of September 2021, the La Palma volcanic eruption began with lava being observed flowing down the mountain and through the villages. The volcano was throwing out huge jets of lava and ash into the air, and officials ordered everyone to move out of the areas close to the volcano, with residents leaving behind schools, villages, homes, and personal belongings. Over 2 months later, and the volcano is still very active, with those in charge saying that all flights to and from the Spanish island of La Palma had been cancelled, and this is due to the massive amount of ash. It's not just people who've been at risk during this event, though. The volcano eruption has had a big effect on nearby wildlife. One individual was flying their drone above areas that had been hit by lava when they spotted something on the ground. Thinking it may have been someone who was injured, they went in for a closer look. It turns out that it was a dog that had been cut off by lava from the La Palma volcano. Those in charge were notified, and they soon put a plan in place. They announced that starving dogs that were surrounded by lava will be rescued via drones, with the operators saying that they plan to save them via drones with remote-controlled nets. They said that the issue here is that the dogs are on one side of the lava stream, and that they can't make it across to safety. So one of the safest ways to help them will be via these remote-controlled nets, saying that once they're inside, they'll be able to fly them over the lava to safety. Officials in charge noted that at this moment in time, they need all the help they can get, and so gave permission to a Spanish drone operator to go in there and save the dogs. The drone user has been keeping a close eye on the dogs and revealed that they've been watching 3 dogs that had been stranded for several weeks, saying that they've been staying close to an abandoned yard. Although they noted that Ashton lava was coming in close, they said that the dogs were trying to keep their distance, but did note that they were close to the mountain. The drone user decided to take action and was actively dropping down dog food via the drones. The 2 companies that provided the dog food would tick on Solutions and Volcanic Life. At the time, though, no one could figure out a way to save these dogs from the nearby lava. Drone users shared footage of the dogs laying on the ground, noting that for most of the day, they were curled up close to a wall that was protecting them from the nearby ash. The drone operators did say, though, that they are aware, as every time they flew the drones overhead, the dogs would look up. The companies that were packing the dog food said they were being assisted by veterinarians. Officials said that they were in a difficult situation, as helicopters are banned from flying over the area, noting that in the past, rotors and other parts of the helicopters have been damaged by ash and lava. Emergency authorities said that after evaluating the situation, they decided that the only way to save these dogs would be via the use of drones, saying that an emergency meeting was made within a few hours, and it was decided that they would go forward with the rescue mission, with them noting that this is the first time this has been allowed in Spain. Jamie Pira, CEO of drone operator Aero Cameras, said that he plans to send a huge 50-kilogram custom-made drone to the area, and that once there he will drop a wide net in order to capture the dogs one by one. He said that once they're inside the nets, he'll fly them over the lava and take them 500 meters away. Jamie Pira said the following: "It's the first time an animal is being rescued with a drone, and the first time it has to be captured. If that's the last option that the dogs have, then we're going after them." End quote. Operating such a large drone means that it drains the batteries incredibly quickly. So Jamie said that he'll only have around 4 minutes to lure the dogs into the net, and another 4 minutes to fly them out to safety. He continued by saying the following: "What we don't want is to run out of battery when flying over the lava. They've been eating very little for weeks. They might come or they might be scared of the drone. It really depends on their reaction." Jamie's been hailed as a hero by the locals. We've used his online saying that many people are focusing on humans, cars, and homes, but hardly any attention has been on local wildlife and pets, with some saying that pets are so important to many people, and that they're part of the family. His efforts have been greatly appreciated. Officials have just announced that another river of lava has been hitting more houses on the island and giant new fissures have opened up. The new fissures have sent lava towards the ocean, causing thousands more people to be evacuated. Miguel Angel, technical director of the Canary Islands Emergency Volcano Response Department, revealed that the volcano has been much more aggressive in the last few days. Earthquakes are also hitting the area, with one of the most recent ones being 3.5 in magnitude. The head of La Palma's council said the following: "There is concern about the path of this new flow towards the sea, although it's expected to join up with the previous one within the next few hours. We have more drama to come, more people to take care of." End quote. Spokesperson David Calvo said the eruption of the volcano is still very strong, and that around 10,000 tons of sulfur dioxide was recorded on Monday. So what do you make of these recent La Palma announcements? Nikola Tesla was easily one of the greatest minds that ever lived, and it's said that had people been more open to his theories and ideas, our world would be a completely different place. At the time, his unique mind wasn't appreciated. It's only been in the years following his death that people respected what he was trying to achieve. Nikola Tesla wasn't one to shy away from electricity and being able to harness it. He also looked at things like anti-gravity technology and something that became known as the ether. One of his famous quotes was the following: "I've worked out a dynamic theory on gravity in all details, and hope to give this to the world very soon." As mentioned, as with many of the great minds of the past, there's a lot of people today that don't understand the impacts they had on modern life. For example, electricity, radar, microwaves, the radio, drones, and many other things all came from the great minds that was Nikola Tesla. He is the definition of a man that was born in the wrong era. To show how ahead he was, when he was demonstrating a remote-controlled boat as an exhibition at Madison Square Garden, everyone couldn't believe what they were seeing and branded Tesla as some sort of magician, demanding that the boat be torn open and prove that he hadn't shrunk people inside. It must have been frustrating for Tesla to have been trying to put forward his ideas in a time like this where, instead of being appreciated, people just wrote off your work as being fantasy and magic. Tesla began believing in an old alchemical mysticism known as the ether. He would talk about it for length and believe that he could tap into it and use its abilities to create a future in which magical devices could exist and change the landscape and powers of humanity overall. This led to a popular quotes that many people reference today, in which Nikola Tesla states the following: "When wireless is perfectly applied, the whole earth will be converted into a huge brain," which in fact is all things being particles of a real and rhythmic whole. We shall be able to communicate with each other instantly, irrespective of distance. Not only this, but we shall see and hear one another as perfectly as though we're face to face, despite intervening distances of thousands of miles, and the instruments through which we shall be able to do this will fit inside a vest pocket. Nikola Tesla is also known for a sad letter he sent to his mother. In the letter he says the following: "My dear mother, I feel sad and dreary when I think of you. I don't know how, but I feel that you are not well. I wish I could be beside you now, mother, to bring you a glass of water. All these years that I spent in the service of mankind brought me nothing but insults and humiliations. This morning I woke up early just before dawn, because I'd heard something that I'd been hearing through my dreams for quite some time now. I heard this voice that sang some beautiful chant, lament, or even prayer in Moorish. When I came to my senses, I realized that this voice came from everywhere, and it was impossible to determine whether it was coming from within. I'm afraid of losing my mind. I cannot confide this to Dr. Lionel because I don't trust him anymore. I heard that he visited Mr. Edison 2 weeks ago. Again, my thoughts are of you, mother. And again, I feel the same restlessness and sorrow. I will write to the Parton office to speed up the realization of my public experiment for 1 week. I have to go back home to my homeland. To you. I know now for sure that you're not well because once again I've heard that lamenting voice, but this time I was wide awake. I still haven't lost my sense. I didn't write to the patent office. Once their agents came and I told him about my intentions in person, he said he was sorry, but the dates could not be changed because all the congressmen have already determined them. I went down to the waterfalls and told the boys to prepare the turbines and wait for my call tomorrow. I've decided to provide the mankind with the gift it deserves and return to Europe to you, my mother. Governments here are the same as the ones back home. I have realized now that at the end, the mankind depends on governments and the individual cannot change the world on himself. But that strange voice still bothers me. I know it's connected to you. My experiment was something transcendental. Dear Mother, I leave for Yugoslavia tomorrow. Miss Nora went to the port and brought me a ticket for Lisbon. From there, I will go by train to Zurich and then straight home. It will take me approximately 10 days. No more than 2 weeks to get home. Today, I have entered the congressional office building. And at the middle of their congressional session, I asked for a couple of minutes of their time. They weren't very happy about it, but they let me. I asked for the telephone to call the laboratory at Niagara Falls. The boys over there activated the turbines and the Congress Hall was lit up with my power, 10 times stronger than the regular one as I promised it wouldn't. I didn't care about their reactions at all. I instantly left the hall because I didn't do this for them but for mankind. In that very moment when I was looking at the lightning bulb to shun with my wireless electricity, I realized that I wasn't the maker of all of this. I felt that someone or something was carrying it from Niagara Falls to the Congress Hall, and that the law I thought I invented actually always existed. I was just the vessel blessed with inspiration to formulate and explain it to mankind. Instead of triumph and happiness, some empty sorrow emerged. I realized that I had been missing something big in my life, as if I'd left something unrecognized completely. Some formula was within the grasp of my understanding, and I have failed or didn't want to clarify it. That has to be connected to the Moish lament. I am sure of it now. This letter will never get to you, Mother. I don't know why I write it to you when you cannot read it. Rest in peace, Mother. And please forgive me for choosing paths that led me away from you. I cannot even be there for your funeral. I read the telegram that informed me of your death and despised people who weren't ready to understand 2 years ago that electricity can't be transformed without wires. Now they've seen it, but they won't use it for centuries to come because someone burned down my downtown laboratory to the ground with all my formulas and writings in it. They suspect of Mr. Edison. I became so indifferent I cannot even recognize myself. I would maybe feel sad before, but not anymore because I am now sure that someone is keeping my patterns under control, that my discovery isn't mine at all, and finally that mankind was not ready for it. I know that someone is overseeing everything and has a plan of their own, which is probably why I am so indifferent. I will lay this letter on your grave when I arrive at our village's graveyard. I believe in something that I never believed at. I believe that I'm still a part of you, and that my life is not over for good. I now feel sorry for avoiding Turks, because they sang laments I heard before dawns. I now realize that they knew more about this thing a lot more than I did. All those years spent in science were in vain. Please, Mother, forgive me. Forgive me for taking these paths. This is the last letter that Nikola Tesla sent to his mother, a sad reminder of what he was facing during this time. Tesla also said the following during an interview. I wanted to illuminate the whole earth. There is enough electricity to become a second sun. Light would appear around the equator as a ring around Saturn. Mankind is not ready for the great and good. In Colorado Springs, I soaked the earth by electricity. Also, we can water the other energies such as positive and mental energy. They are the music of great composers or the verses of great poets. In the earth's interior, there are energy of joy, peace, and love. Their expressions are a flower that grows from the earth, the food we get out of her, and everything that makes man's homeland. I've spent years looking for the way that this energy could influence people. The beauty and the scent of roses can be used as a medicine, and the sun's rays as a food. Life has an infinite number of forms, and the duty of scientists is to find them in every form of matter. 3 things are essential in this. All that I do is search for them. I know I will not find them, but I will never give up on them. Over the last month or so, people have been reporting strange things. These reports have been made all across the planet, with the majority of eyewitnesses not being able to explain what they're seeing. This has in turn caused various different theories to be put forward in the hopes of explaining these objects. One place where these strange objects have been reported is that of Dubai. Eyewitnesses have said that over the last few weeks, these mysterious anomalies have been seen by many people, with one person live broadcasting the event as it was happening. The video was strewn to various Facebook groups, with people in the comment sections putting forward their theories to try and explain what they were seeing. Some suggested that the objects in question came from space and could have been meteorites burning up, but others said this couldn't have been the case as they were too close to the buildings, and at one point they were even flying around them. To further back up the idea they were not meteorites, they could be seen changing direction and pulsating. Those who witnessed the event firsthand said there were between 8 and 12 lights overall, and that all of these gave off bright colors. One person who saw the video said the following: "Although I wasn't in the region when this happened, I've seen similar looking objects here in the US. Something that I've noticed is that they seem to be disguised as meteorites, but after a while they start acting unnatural. For example, being able to change direction and flying away at high speeds. One thing I couldn't explain is how they were able to change direction. I did try and capture the objects that were above my house, but due to how far away they were and that they were giving off bright lights, my phone wasn't able to focus and take a clear photograph. As of right now, it's not known what these objects were, but as some have pointed out, strange activity in our skies seems to be on the rise. Some have labeled these anomalies as unidentified flying objects, and said that in the last few years alone, reports have been on the increase. Various photographs and videos have made their way into the mainstream media, with government officials even coming forward and saying they're investigating these crafts, and that some of them are in fact genuine. This has caused people to look into the subject with a more open mind. Interestingly, there's not many places where these unidentified flying objects have not been recorded. Skeptics, however, have said the cause of the lights could be down to atmospheric conditions, suggesting that it could be similar to ball lightning or earthquake lines. Other ideas are that the videos are fake, but this seems unlikely as many have captured different angles of these objects. It's interesting how there's been an increase in reports of unidentified flying objects over the last few months alone, and due to many people having smartphones were able to record these events. So far, researchers and scientists have done a great job at unraveling some of the universe's biggest secrets. However, there have been some anomalies and signals that researchers haven't been able to explain. Space is one place that humans will never fully explore. It's anyone's guess as to what's out there, and with it being home to over hundreds of billions of planets, it's not crazy to say there could be all walks of life inhabiting various planets. One of the most interesting planets is that of Mars. With it being in our solar system and also being so close to us in terms of space, scientists have been able to carry out various tests and even send advanced rovers and satellites to map the terrain. This has given scientists a much better understanding of its environment and what else happens here on a day-to-day basis. However, various photographs that have been sent back over the years have only caused more confusion about what's really going on here, as various amateur researchers have suggested there could be life on Mars. Whilst NASA and other space agencies have made it clear about their stance of alien life on Mars, they have come forward and said that at this moment there is strong evidence to suggest there is water on Mars, and this is through the discoveries of hydrated salts and ascites. However, water in liquid form is yet to be discovered or confirmed. A lot of evidence and research points to the existence of water on Mars, such as the finding of the European Mars Express. This craft, using an advanced radar system known as MARSES, found that Mars' south pole holds a subsurface anomaly that strongly suggests that's an entire lake, thought to be around 12.4 miles or 20 kilometers across and at least 1 meter deepest underneath the pole. Very recent evidence has found there are certain places on Mars of which could potentially hold liquid water given the perfect conditions. The reason that ice water is plentiful on Mars, but currently there is no evidence of liquid water, is because Mars' atmosphere is incredibly thin, so as soon as any ice would melt it would immediately turn to vapor. These specific environments are in the shadows of rocks, and could only host liquid water during the midwinter. But nevertheless, it seems a very real possibility. Amateur researchers, though, have said there's a lot more than just icy water on this planet, and that when you comb through photographs that have been sent back, you'll be surprised to find some very interesting anomalies. Back in 2000, someone discovered something strange in a photograph sent back from Mars. The photograph in question has become known as the Tower, and is used by people as proof that there are or once were beings living on the red planet. At the time when the image was public, many people downloaded it and conducted various tests to try and find out more. What they discovered was that this object was massive. Not only that, but it was very consistent with buildings we have on Earth. This caused some to suggest that what we're looking at is some type of massive building. Those who carried out measuring techniques suggested it measured 3.9 miles or 6.3 kilometers. This only caused more confusion, as how could such a skyscraper-like object form naturally? To further back up this claim, those who discovered it point to the massive shadow that can be seen being casted behind it, proving that whatever this was is big enough to cause a shadow. It's important to note as well that this photograph was taken by the Mars Orbiter Surveyor. This was launched on the 7th of November 1996. It had taken years to build this incredible piece of equipment, but it's noted by NASA as being the first successful mission to the Red Planet in over 20 years. The orbiter finally reached the Red Planet in March of 1999, where it would then go on to map the terrain from low altitude. Since this date, it sent back thousands of images. Interestingly, many of which haven't been studied by researchers or scientists, and which, some say, do hide interesting anomalies that could help us understand the planet's environment better. This early surveyor was able to tell scientists a lot about Mars' surface, environment, atmosphere, and interior. The camera that was on the Mars orbiter was able to send back some incredible images that would help us understand how we would approach the planets in the future when it came to missions. This is interesting because at its closest points, the Mars orbiter got around 68 miles or 110 kilometers above the surface, and even at this distance, it was still able to pick up on this massive structure, causing some to think that it's taller than any man-made structure we have here on Earth. Interestingly, others have gone down a different route for what this object could be. Although amateur researchers don't discredit the size of this massive object, what they can't seem to agree on is what it actually is. Some have put forward the idea of what we're looking at is an unidentified flying object, and they say that it's easier to see when this object is flipped, going on to say that it looks exactly like the V-shaped UFOs that were reported on our planet. These researchers point to the fact that over the years, various unidentified flying objects have been detected in the Martian sky. It's these sightings that spawn various theories about what's really happening on the Red Planet. Interestingly, the original image is really hard to track down. It was named MO300946. However, when you click the links to view it on the original Marlin space science system, the image no longer appears and you get an error message. This website provides the camera systems and surfaces for space missions. It's issues like this that don't help agencies, as theorists believe that when these types of images are taken down from websites, planets, it's because they're trying to hide something, and all this does is create more theories. There's also groups of people that suggest that millions of years ago Mars was actually inhabited by an advanced civilization, but something happened to the planets that caused them to move on, and what we're seeing in this photograph is a piece of old technology that got left behind. Over the years, people have said the Red Planet is littered with strange anomalies. These range from animals, trees, unidentified flying objects, and even everyday items like clones. However, not everyone has gotten on board with this idea, NASA being the main ones who have spoken out on a few occasions about these claims. Perhaps one of the most well-known is that of the Mars rat. It was first picked up on by UFO researchers a few years back, and they suggested the animal was placed on the Martian surface in order to see the effects the planet has on a live animal. However, Joy Crisp, who was the Curiosity deputy project scientist of NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory at the time, said the following: "Clearly it results from a lot of things like wind erosion and mechanical abrasions and breakdown chemical weathering of the rocks. This is why they get these weird shames." One individual who studies Mars anomalies said the following: "Over the years NASA has been seen removing photographs of anomalies on Mars, or even moving them to a different location so that it's harder to find them. I really don't understand why they do this. After all, if the photographs are genuine and do show something mysterious, why not just come clean and tell people? Surely at some point the news will come out and people will eventually find out the truth. Why prolong that process? It reminds me of the UFO phenomena when people were and still are ridiculed for believing in them. Yet the Navy just confirmed that the crafts that had been captured were genuine. So after all those years of alienating people that believed in the phenomena, they now come forward and admits that these crafts are of particular interest, and they match the description of UFOs that had been seen for decades. It does seem like a kick in the teeth. As of today, NASA and other officials explain these discoveries as being just camera anomalies or pareidolia. This is where humans see objects and faces and everyday things. They suggest that the majority of the photographs that are presented are of low quality, and that it's hard to determine what the object is. But even with this explanation, they say that all these discoveries don't show anything mysterious, and can always be explained. Usually turn out to be geological structures found on the red planet. They haven't given an explanation for this structure as the photograph can no longer be found. But as mentioned, NASA have said they're yet to find anything on the Martian planets that they can't explain. So what do you make of the alleged Mars Tower? Do you think it shows a giant structure? Or is it just a camera trick that makes it look like there's a giant tower? The mysteries of space have fascinated both the ordinary man and the astrophysicist alike for years as we attempt to unravel the mysteries that sprawl beyond our atmosphere. Examining the cosmic occurrences beyond our atmosphere can inform us about how our solar system came to be and what we can expect in the future. The range of these discoveries is as broad as space itself and just as unpredictable. So today, we will be looking at 3 recent space discoveries and what they revealed about the confounding limits of the cosmos stretching in all directions. Huge hole 50 Earths wide discovered on the Sun. The enormity of the Sun is such that every aspect of it is almost incomprehensibly large, and that even extends to the holes that develop in its surface. Although over the years there have been many incredibly large holes in the corona or the extended atmosphere encircling our flaming star, in 2014 it developed a noteworthy hole that boasted a diameter over 50 times the size of Earth. Although the development of holes in the coronal layer is not unusual, this hole was exceptionally large and quickly captured the attention of researchers and scientists because of its size. In fact, it was so large that satellite images captured of the Sun at the time are dominated by its presence. However, these images were one of the only ways to view the coronal lesion, as the variations of the Sun's atmosphere are only visible when captured in ultraviolet wavelengths. Amazingly, despite its large size, if you were able to look directly at the Sun, which you should never do, the hole would be invisible to the naked eye in spite of the fact that it boasts a diameter 50 times that of Earth. This specific coronal lesion was photographed from several different angles by the Solar Dynamics Observatory spacecraft over the course of almost a week and gave scientists the ability to observe its unique appearance and activity. When coronal holes appear, they contribute to generate what is known as space weather, losing plasma and charged particles from the atmosphere of the Sun in the form of ultrafast solar winds that can affect the atmosphere of Earth. Coronal holes are more commonly formed in the lower latitudes of the Sun, closer to the poles, and are often generated when the Sun is at a declining point in its 11-year cycle. Although this hole was especially large, it did not have any effects beyond those normally seen with the occurrence of a coronal lesion. And scientists were eager to study it because of its large size and observable, although predictable effects. So what did this massive hole mean for those of us stuck here on Earth? Unless you happen to live in an area where northern lights are visible, the answer is not much. Coronal holes tend to cause a much more prominent aurora borealis due to the interactions of the escaping solar geomagnetic energy and Earth's atmosphere. During a large coronal lesion or coronal mass ejection, those witnessing the northern lights might notice that they are much more vibrant and cover a wider area of the sky as a result. Additionally, the high likelihood that the increased solar wind will ignite a geomagnetic storm could affect the power and navigation satellites that orbit Earth as well as radio communication. These disruptions are often not even noticeable by most people and should only be as brief as the coronal lesion itself. Scientists discover Jupiter-sized planet. When it comes to the eventual end of life for the Sun, scientists must look into the far reaches of space to try to estimate the fate of our galaxy. While examples elsewhere in the cosmos have indicated that our own planet Earth will inevitably be caught and incinerated in the fiery blast as the Sun dies down into a white dwarf. What is less clear is what fate lies in store for those planets that are lucky enough to reside outside of the reaches of the final eruption of our Sun. A recent article published in the journal Nature attempted to predict the fate of planets such as Jupiter or Saturn by analyzing a white dwarf star over 6,500 light-years away being orbited by a planet approximately the size of Jupiter and occupying a comparable orbit. This combination is notable because it provides a rare example of the remains of a star and one of its residual planetary orbits. Most burned-out stars that have been identified are orbited by rocky planetary debris, and instances of an entire intact planet remaining in orbit are rare. This planet, a gas giant with a mass and apparent composition markedly like Jupiter's, allows scientists to hazard a guess as to what might happen to those planets on the outskirts of the Sun's gravitational pull. Additionally, it offers implications for how any life that as the destruction of our star. The white dwarf star that the planet orbits around is also notable because it seems that during its time as an ignited burning star, it was just as similar to our Sun as the gas giant is to Jupiter. White dwarfs are stars that burned out by swelling into a red giant and rapidly burning through the hydrogen fuel, absorbing any planets they encounter as they expand. Eventually, the atmosphere of the star burns up, resulting in a residual core around the size of Earth that cools for billions of years as a white dwarf. This is likely the fate of our Sun and was also the fate of the star with the lone Jupiter-like planet in orbit around it, which has given scientists a chance to study the conditions that might have occurred to allow the planet to avoid destruction during the raging transition involved with the star's evolution into a white dwarf. Not only did the published study determine that gas giants do not need to be as far away as previously speculated to survive their star's end, but it also supported the theory that over half of all white dwarfs likely have their own residual planets orbiting them. The data of this study determined that the planet and its star formed at around the same time, and the planet orbits approximately 414 million kilometers from the star. Although closer than estimates had previously allowed for surviving planets, this distance is still almost 3 times the distance of Earth from the Sun. Joshua Blackman, lead author of the published study, said that this evidence confirms that planets orbiting at a large enough distance can continue to exist after their star's end of life. Given that this system is an analogy to our own solar system, it suggests that Jupiter and Saturn might survive the Sun's red giant phase, when it runs out of nuclear fuel and self-destructs. Although this is not the best news for those of us here on Earth, if there are any undiscovered life forms lurking on Jupiter or Saturn, they will be very relieved indeed. Black Beauty Mars meteorite dinosaur fossils are not the only things dating back millions of years that can be discovered on Earth's surface. Meteorite remnants can occasionally be found that survive the journey through Earth's atmosphere and date back millions or even billions of years. However, there is one meteorite remnant that has awed and amazed scientists the world over. The Black Beauty meteorite, otherwise known as Northwest Africa 7034, is a meteorite that is the second oldest Martian meteorite yet discovered and is composed of such unique materials that it does not fit into any of the 3 SNC meteorite categories. This Black Beauty meteorite was first discovered in the Gridabsant region of the Western Sahara and has been determined to be at least 4 billion years old. It is made up of volcanic breccia and is the first Martian meteorite to be composed of this material. There are an estimated 132 Martian meteorites that have been found on Earth, but the Black Beauty's unique breccia composition and captivating appearance has designated it as one of the rarest of these earthbound Martian meteorites. Scientists studying the meteorite were able to determine that not only was it indeed a chunk from the crust of Mars, but despite its rarity here on Earth, it is likely representative of the material that covers large portions of our neighboring planet in regions known as the dark plains. In these areas, the characteristic red dust that Mars is known for is rather thin, and the underlying rocks, which appear to be composed of the same material as Black Beauty, are more exposed. This conclusion was based on analysis of Black Beauty, which revealed it to have sedimentary layers within its brachial composition that have a chemical makeup consistent with that of the rock samples. Other Martian meteorite samples have been igneous rocks made of cooled volcanic material from the planets that were not pieces of the actual crust itself. This analysis solidifies Black Beauty's rarity, as not only is it one of the oldest Martian meteorites, but it is also the first example of a piece of the crust of Mars itself to make it to Earth. This discovery was a breakthrough for scientists, as previous Martian meteorite analysis always slightly matched the Mars rover analysis, but consistently exhibited differences that confounded researchers. Now, however, they have a true example of the composition of a significant portion of Mars's crust that matches the Mars rover analysis. It seems that the next step is simply to go and see what lies on the mysterious birthplace of Black Beauty. What do you make of these interesting discoveries? Science is truly amazing, and every day it seems that the brilliant minds hard at work in laboratories and research facilities unveil more and more incredible discoveries. No matter the field or research area, there is no end to the mysteries of our world, and while scientists are constantly discovering answers to lingering scientific questions, they often end up with even more questions than they began with. So today, we will be looking at 3 of the most interesting that science has presented us with and what questions they either answer or create. Moon Mountain in a moat. Planets are not the only cosmic entities that confound scientists with elusive mysteries. In fact, one of the most inscrutable bodies of the solar system can be found in Pluto's largest moon, Charon, which has interested scientists and researchers almost as much as the slightly larger dwarf planet that it orbits. Recently, NASA's New Horizons spacecraft has been able to capture photographs of Charon that have piqued the interest of scientists, as early images revealed that there might be a lot more mysteries hidden on the moon than originally thought. In fact, due to an unexpectedly dark polar cap and a surface that suggests recent formations and relatively young geologic activity, researchers studying the image have said that, shockingly, the surface of Charon looks surprisingly more like a planet than Pluto itself. However, the most surprising image that was captured on the otherwise fairly smooth lunar surface of Charon. Although there is evidence of other craters, crevices, and cracks scattered around the moon, there is nothing even slightly approaching this massive indentation in size or scope. And what makes the region even more interesting is the fact that rising from the center of the enormous crater is a strangely majestic mountain. This strange feature has earned the name Mountain in a Moat, and has raised questions as researchers attempted to discern how such an odd landmark came to be on a faraway moon orbiting a small dwarf planet such as Pluto. Although this mountain in a moat has only been observed through photographs so far, and closer analysis is difficult due to its position at some of the farthest reaches of the solar system, some observers have noticed similarities between Charon and Iapetus, a moon that orbits Saturn. Iapetus has a similar structure to the mountain in a moat observed on Charon, and currently, researchers have made theoretical connections between the two in order to hypothesize as to what could have possibly caused such an odd landmark. And Verbisa, a team member with New Horizons, has noted that both moons have a mountain, instances of icy volcanism, and ground-based detection of ammonium hydrate, along with cracks formed due to faults from potential lava tubes. Although it is anyone's guess as to what could have caused the cracks initially, Verbisa explains the other elements by saying that ammonia hydrate acts like antifreeze when mixed with water ice and can help with making cryovolcanic activities possible on bodies such as Charon and Iapetus. Ultimately, It seems that the lack of other craters on Charon combined with the cracks along its surface suggests that the Moon could have once been a dynamically active world, rather than a stagnant lump of rock simply orbiting Pluto. At any rate, scientists believe that there is no doubt that at one point in time the surface of Charon was much more active than it is now, even if that time was only a brief moment. Currently, the New Horizons team is carefully analyzing other images taken of Pluto and Charon by the New Horizons spacecraft in order to look for further clues as to how the mysterious landscape was formed and what it might mean for our understanding of the rest of the solar system. Physicists say that energy can be teleported. Sometimes some of the most interesting scientific breakthroughs are not physical breakthroughs at all, but rather theoretical conjectures about the nature of the universe from a quantum physics standpoint. One of these most recent conjectural propositions is incredibly interesting because it introduces the idea that energy might be able to be transported over expanses so great that their potential distance has no limit. However, this idea exists on a purely particular wavelength, rather than the entire science fiction notions of transporting bodies and spacecrafts across the cosmos. The researchers involved in this recent proposal, who work out of Tohoku University in Japan, are led by Masahiro Hata, deal with the properties of entanglement experiments wherein particles with no apparent connection become joined to each other simultaneously. Squeezed light or vacuum states that cause quantum energy created through the teleportation of particles to be made usable, and is based in experiments conducted by Charlie Bennett in 1993 that demonstrated how to transfer quantum information between 2 points without the information having to travel across the intervening space. This became known as entanglement and is rooted in the idea that two particles essentially share the same existence, so that any measurement taken from one particle identically influences the other particle, no matter how far apart they are. While these ideas have been widely studied since their introduction for the potential to transmit quantum information through teleportation, Otter took it one step further and theorized that you could extract the energy from particles through the teleportation process due to the quantum fluctuations that are found in the energy of every particle. This is theoretically possible because measurement of one quantum particle involved in quantum teleportation injects energy into the system, which can then be harnessed as usable teleported energy. Remarkably, the overall energy of the system would remain unchanged. Despite the fact that the current ideas surrounding these quantum entanglement and teleportation ideas are purely theoretical at the moment, the proposed principles are relevant to a large number of other fields dealing with quantum physics and the quantum theory of Maxwell's demon. Although these ideas are certainly breakthroughs as far as energy transportation, previous experiments that implement these concepts have been conducted using light and matter particles, so it is likely only a matter of time before preliminary experiments are begun that explore the physical concepts of energy teleportation. For now, the ideas are simply that ideas and physicists are more concerned with the we'll have for how we are able to understand and explore the mysterious relationship between quantum information and quantum energy. Baby octopus grows hundreds of mysterious organs. Sometimes discoveries are made which scientists simply have no answer for. Recently, researchers have been investigating octopuses and the strange phenomena that occurs when they are young. When it comes to humans and many other animal species, the organs that we are born with are the ones that we have all of our lives, albeit not without a fair amount of growth and development throughout the lifespan. However, it seems that baby octopuses do not adhere to these rules, not by a long shot. Before octopuses are born, they are covered in hundreds of tiny organs that spread across every surface of their bodies, including even the innermost nooks, crannies, and pockets of skin. What is truly incredible is that these hundreds of organs are so small as to be microscopic and they are entirely temporary. Known as Kuluk's organs or KOs, they cover the skin of the baby octopus in a broom-like formation that occasionally appears to be a small, folded umbrella. These umbrella-like additions are all capable of opening and blooming into a dandelion of bristle fibers. And then, for reasons that remain entirely mysterious to scientists, these KOs disappear long before the octopus reaches adulthood, never to be seen again. Recently, a study was conducted that attempted to get to the bottom of the purpose of KOs and discern what advantage they imparted on the young octopus. They also discovered that each KO organism is a uniform size, and when they bloomed into their fully expanded size, They increased the overall surface area of the octopus by up to 2/3. This has led researchers to hypothesize that the function of the KO has its roots in increasing the surface area of the octopus, so that the surface-to-volume ratio also increases, which could prove useful when navigating the currents and even acting as a rudimentary propulsion mechanism for the young sea creatures. This would be useful for energy conservation and mobility, but so far there is little evidence to confirm this function as the true purpose of the KOs. Another hypothesis that resulted from the careful study of the mysterious microscopic organs suggests that the bloomed KOs can refract the light that filters through the ocean waves in much the same way that a prism would do. This would make them harder to spot and act as a form of camouflage, which would be especially useful when they are so young and vulnerable. The study also found that many of these octopus species that made their home in the dark depths of the ocean where light does not often reach never develop KOs, further supporting the camouflage hypothesis as a light refracting mechanism would be useless at such dark depths. The exact cause of these strange organs, and it seems that their purpose is a secret that science will keep for a while. But what do you make of these three discoveries? The vast cosmos has been the center of humanity's fascination for as long as we have existed upon Earth. We have always sought to reach the stars, to achieve the unachievable, and to expand our realm of existence onto other planets. That is still the case today, perhaps more than ever, with the contribution of NASA and other international space organizations that fund cosmic research. Who knows, perhaps in the near future we will be able to fulfill what our predecessors believed to be a thing of fiction and colonize other parts of space. So today we'll be taking a look at 3 cosmic NASA-based discoveries. Mystery object keeps orbiting our planet in September of 2002. An odd object was first seen orbiting Earth. The strange object is at best 60 feet long with a rotation speed of an estimated 60 seconds. The first man to see it was Bill Yoon, a fledgling astronomer who saw it on September 3rd and dubbed it. It is believed that the object newly entered orbit in September of 2002, according to NASA's scientist Paul Chodas, who claims they would have caught it if it was in orbit before then. According to Chodas, the object does not match any spacecraft sent into space around that date. Simply put, NASA scientists have no clue as to what this object even is. 10-minute footage of J002E3 was captured by the Schiaparelli Astronomical Observatory's Andrea Aletti, who found it orbiting around the Taurus constellation, with its brightness depending on its rotation. Different images of the object show it in different ways, further baffling researchers. Alien enthusiasts claim it must be a UFO, though the rise in alien speculations was commented upon Chodos, who refuted them by stating, if it is an alien spaceship, the aliens aren't good pilots. J002E3 is in a chaotic orbit. It loops around Earth once every 48 days or so, coming as close to our planet as the Moon and ranging as far as 2 lunar distances. Unfortunately for alien theorists, there is a lack of evidence to suggest that J002E3 is moving with a personal power. It seems to move due to orbital gravity caused by the Sun and Moon. Bill Yoon initially believed that the object was a tiny asteroid, a perfectly sound guess as most objects that pass Earth tend to be meteoric in nature, and it moved at an asteroid's average pace. Yoon even considered the concept of Earth having caught a new asteroid moon, as other planets in our solar system have been known to do. This idea was crushed when the paint was revealed. Astronomers found traces of colors that aligned with the same 50 years ago in the 1970s. This discovery suggested the object is in fact an old Apollo rocket journeying through our solar system. But that brings to question what it was doing for 50 years. Chodas believes the rocket was orbiting the Sun, saying, "I've traced the motion of J002E3 backwards in time to find out where it's been. I've never seen anything like this." According to Chodas's researcher, it was sent into space in 1971 and circled the Sun over 30 times before coming back into Earth's orbit. The problem? No pieces of the Apollo 14, which J002E3 was initially believed to be part of, were missing. When Chodas investigated the Apollo 14 mission, every part of the rocket was either returned to Earth or landed purposefully on the Moon, such as Apollo 14's SIVB, which landed on the moon with the hope of monitoring lunar seismic activity. The strange object could not possibly then be a missing Apollo 14 piece. Chodas stated there is an outside chance that it might be one of the spacecraft Lunar Module Adapter SLA panels, although J002E3 appears to be too bright for one of those. Alternatively, could this be the SIVB of Apollo 12 of 1969? It is believed that the SIVB engine was turned on when the rocket was low on fuel, but it burned for too long and instead of circling the sun it ended up in a volatile orbit between the Earth and Moon, much akin to what happened with J002E3 decades later. Around the 2040s. Currently, it is circling our solar system on a galactic journey. By then, it is probable that humans might be able to go as far as to truly see what J002E3 is, a mystery still unknown to us to this day, even though the Apollo 12 SIVB is the leading theory during interstellar travels as we expand our reign to other places in our solar system. NASA recently created artificial glowing clouds. NASA revealed their new equipment, the Super Soaker mission, meant to create glowing clouds, using a mini rocket they fired into Earth's upper atmosphere. NASA detonated the rocket, which formed artificial clouds called PMCs or polar mesospheric clouds. These polar mesospheric clouds hold ice crystals in the atmosphere and glow due to their ability to capture sunlight. While they may seem frivolous, they have a greater purpose. The PMCs can assist us in sustaining Earth life. They will also give scientists advanced data into what is happening in our atmosphere. The PMC rocket launched in January from Alaska and reached a height of 53 miles into the air before it was detonated, releasing 485 pounds of water vapor into the skies, cooling the air. It took 18 seconds for NASA detective lasers to catch the glow of the PMCs. The sudden cold temperature is what triggered the glow, and certain scientists believe that glowing clouds might be a common occurrence in our future as more satellites are added to the atmosphere. PMCs occasionally occur in nature during the summer months across the Earth's poles, typically at twilight when the sun shines over them. According to physicist Richard Collins at the University of Alaska, what has attracted a lot of interest in these clouds is their sensitivity. They're occurring just on the edge of viability in the upper atmosphere, where it's incredibly dry and incredibly cold. They're a very sensitive indicator of changes in the upper atmosphere, changes in temperature or changes in water vapor. Sending out artificial PMCs into the sky is bound to help us understand microphysics in a brand new light. The rocket was sent up in January precisely because they do not form in the cold months of the year, and so the artificial PMC could not be mistaken for a naturally occurring one. Another space physicist, Irfan Azim, stated, "We wanted to make sure to avoid mixing artificially created and naturally occurring PMCs. That way we could be confident that any PMC we observed was attributable to the Super Soaker experiment." NASA discovers first possible planet outside our galaxy. The Milky Way is vast, and although we have found countless planets in fellow solar systems, to see beyond the Milky Way is no small feat. But NASA scientists have recently discovered the first potential planet outside of our galaxy. Found in the Whirlpool Galaxy by the Chandra X-ray Observatory, this seems to be the first exoplanet outside of this galaxy that we have ever seen. All other known exoplanets are strictly within our very own Milky Way. It is estimated to be as far as 28 million light-years away. Compared with the general 3,000 light-years away most Milky Way exoplanets are from Earth. This discovery could truly be the beginning of a new era for humanity as we begin to observe what was once unobservable. Astrophysicist Rosanne DeStefano claims, "We are trying to open up a whole new arena for finding other worlds by searching for planet candidates at X-ray wavelengths, a strategy that makes it possible to discover them in other galaxies." Scientists look through X-rays produced by observatories for changes in brightness that typically indicated a neutron star or black hole. Both such things shine on X-rays, making any planets passing them by easier to see. Using this technique lets researchers find planets significantly further away from us. Unfortunately, the suspected Whirlpool Galaxy exoplanet is not yet a confirmed exoplanet. Further research must go into the project before NASA know definitively whether the discovery is true. And due to the incredible distance from us to the Whirlpool Galaxy, it might take over 70 years before we know. The suspected exoplanet has a long orbit and will not cross in front of the brightness binary again for at least 7 decades. But even still, it will take timing and precision to capture the evidence, timing which currently we doubt we possess. Because of the uncertainties about how long it takes to orbit, we wouldn't know exactly when to look, states Niramara of the University of California. Assuming the planet is indeed a planet at all, it is thought it would have had to survive the supernova which formed the neutron star or black hole that signals it out against the X-rays. The star it currently orbits may explode before we have the time to analyze this new prospective planet. And if that occurs, it will be hit with an abundance of radiation. Even if the theories are wrong, it does not change the fact we are finally developing the technology to gradually look past our galaxy and into new ones. The Chandra has datasets for an estimated 20 galaxies other than the Milky Way, and it is without a doubt we are bound to discover non-Milky Way exoplanets sooner or later. Our future is bursting with potential, and there is so much to see and research when it comes to the cosmos, and the concept of us expanding into the universe is one brimming with excitement. So what do you make of these NASA discoveries? Science is a huge field, filled with so many disciplines, all of which are continuously advancing. Whether it is the latest ecological research or looking at what is happening out there in our solar system, there is sure to be something new being researched and announced at any given time. So today we will be taking a look at 3 recent scientific discoveries. The Mexican mangrove forest is trapped in time. I'm sure most of us are familiar with time capsules, whether you buried a tin stuffed with newspapers, coins, and other treasures as a child, or you watched them get dug up on TV. Now, though, it appears that Mother Nature has made a time capsule of her own, preserving a forest of red mangroves in the Yucatan Peninsula, Mexico in time. Visiting this forest is like turning back the clock by a staggering 100,000 years. We typically see red mangroves, also known by their biological name as rhizophora mangroves, along tropical coastlines, not because they are enjoying a beachside getaway, but because they can only grow in salt water, making these hot coastal areas the perfect spot to grow. However, this particular mangrove forest can be found near the San Pedro River, in Tabasco, a staggering 200 kilometers away from the closest ocean. This ecological puzzle has left questions for many scientists, though a team of researchers from all over the world, covering a broad range of specialist areas of study, think they may have found an answer. An answer that transports us back to 125,000 years in the past. The lead author of this research, Octavio Alberto, a marine ecologist working at the Scripps Institution of Oceanography at the University of California, San Diego, described the mangrove ecosystem as having been trapped in time for more than 100,000 years. He elaborated, describing the research as piecing a lost world back together, to begin unraveling the mystery as to how the coastal saltwater plants ended up in a freshwater environment so far from the coast. The researchers took DNA samples from the trees to be analyzed. This aimed to find some key differences between this freshwater mangrove forest and the more regular mangrove trees. Evolutionary geneticist at Queen Mary University of London, Richard Nichols, though not involved with the study, explained that by counting the differences in the genome sequences between the saltwater and freshwater mangrove samples, it would be possible to estimate how long it has been since the 2 trees had a common ancestor. In this particular research, Nichols explained that the genome mutations appeared at a rate of 1 in every 300 million letters of genetic code. However, if you are finding the common ancestor between 2 sample groups, it must come before the 2 groups split from one another. The research team manages to determine, using the method that looks at the number of genetic, that it has been approximately 125,000 years since these mangroves became isolated from the nearest coastal mangroves. But we have still not talked about why this strange ecological phenomenon has occurred. The current theories assume that this is due to global warming and that once upon a time the now landlocked state of Yucatan was once along the coastline. Global warming and the changes in our sea levels have been a point of concern for years and years. Though in more modern discussions we have talked about sea levels rising, and the sea level has fluctuated up and down many times throughout the Earth's past. This complicated phenomenon is partly due to small shifts in the Earth's orbit around the Sun, impacting the amount of solar radiation we receive. When we have the least amount of solar radiation, the Earth falls into an ice age. When we hit the maximum radiation, we have an interglacial period, causing the ice sheets from the ice age melt away, increasing the sea level in our oceans. Since the last interglacial period ended approximately 120,000 years ago, according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, meaning the timeline does line up with the mangrove forest. The working theory is that when the ice sheets melted during the interglacial period, the sea levels rose enough to bring the coastline to once the sea levels then dropped again. The once coastal city became entirely land-based, far from the sea, leaving these coastal plants stranded in the middle of the country. Despite this theory seeming to make a lot of sense, to answer our questions there is one problem. The mangrove forest currently sits 30 feet above sea level, and the models we have to estimate the sea levels from the period do not reflect this drastic a change. This means that even in the last interglacial period the mangrove forest would not have been covered by the sea. It is hoped that this research can help feed into more accurate predictions as to how the changes in sea level due to climate change will impact the future development of the area. We still have lots of questions and speculations surrounding this mangrove forest. Even if the changes in sea levels give us an explanation, we still do not know how the plants all managed to successfully adapt to the freshwater conditions. There is still a large window for future development and research, though these exciting bits of analysis are huge strides forward for now. Adding one more piece to the puzzle at a time. Huge solar storms struck the Earth on Halloween. Over the Halloween weekend, plenty of us put our skepticism aside and dress up, go on ghost walks and keep our eyes peeled for something creepy and unusual. But what if I told you that spooky aura sighting and strange way your GPS would not load was not the result of the paranormal or the supernatural, but rather the astronomical? On October 29, 2021, a large solar flare erupted from the sun. This solar flare could have resulted in a coronal mass ejection hitting the Earth during the Halloween weekend period. A CME means that electrically charged matter is emitted into the nearby magnetic fields and into space as a whole. The solar flare was categorized as an X1 class solar flare, meaning it is ranked as the most powerful. The system is not too dissimilar from earthquakes. NASA described the event as a significant solar flare. Dr. Tamitha Skalv, a space weather physicist, tweeted, "A direct hit for Halloween." She continued to explain that the eruptions we could expect here on Earth included aura sightings, amateur radio disruptions, and issues with GPS reception. While this might all sound rather frightening to those of us who do not know much about these solar flares, NASA were quick to provide reassurance, explaining that the harmful radiation that comes from a solar flare cannot pass through the Earth's atmosphere to cause harm to us, though if they are of a high enough classification and are intense enough they can cause some disruptions to some layers of the atmosphere, for instance impacting GPS and communication signals. Unfortunately, this means that the usual telltale signs that you may have bumped into some lingering could be easier for the non-believers to debunk and dismiss this year. Whilst you can still dress up or head on out on your ghost walk, do not get too excited when you are telling your mates about that spirit you saw and how your Google Maps would not load up, because it may just have been the soul of flares tricking you. NASA spacecraft just saw the North Pole of Europa. Jupiter has 79 moons, putting Earth's measly one to shame. And with so many moons, it is unsurprising that there is a great deal we do not yet know about them. NASA are on it though. With their spacecraft Juno being sent to orbit Jupiter, plenty of insights are being frequently sent back to us here on Earth, the most recent of which tells us a little more about Europa, Jupiter's icy moon. Up until now, we have not seen all of Europa, with no photos being taken from a distance and no sightings of the North Pole region. This camera-shy moon has finally been captured by Juno, and the results are more exciting than we had guessed. Europa's icy North Pole seems to have water vapor that looks as though it is rising out of the moon in plumes, suggesting the oceans of this planet could have conditions that could be home to life. Looking for signs of life in space, especially within our own solar system, is a thrilling aspect of astronomical research. Up until now, a great deal of research in our own solar system has looked at how the conditions on Mars could have once supported life, though now it seems Europa could be a new contender. Admittedly, the photo quality from Juno is poor in the images received so far. With a distance of 50,000 miles between the spacecraft and the Moon, the resolution is not spectacular. However, next year Juno is due to travel just a few hundred miles above the same spot of Europa, giving us a great opportunity to look forward to just on the horizon. Scott Bolton, the Juno principal investigator and director of the Space Science and Engineering Division of the Southwest Research Institute, described this as a tantalizing example and a taste of what's to come. The advancements we can see just around the corner continue to be just as thrilling as ever. Hopefully more questions and information will be coming our way shortly. Whether we find one more piece of information in a wider piece of research or we are uncovering some answers to big questions, science is fascinating and the research is never complete. But what do you make of these discoveries? Space, that vast realm full of more mysteries than certainties, constantly taunting those researchers who peer through telescope lenses at the immeasurable emptiness that lies beyond our atmosphere. Although new discoveries are constantly being made thanks to the constantly improving technology that we have at our disposal, these discoveries do not always provide us with exact answers about space. In fact, frequently, a new discovery means uncovering even more mysterious and unanswerable questions. So today we'll be taking a look at interesting space discoveries. Mysterious object on Saturn's moons. One of the things that is usually certain about the lifeless planets orbiting the Sun is the fact that things rarely change. Scientists, looking at two satellite images of the same location on a distant planet, taken sometimes years apart, might find themselves playing the world's hardest game of spot the difference. However, an image taken of a lake on one of Saturn's moons caused researchers to do a double take. As a strange formation had emerged, and in an even stranger turn of events, the formation disappeared just as suddenly as it had appeared, leaving scientists with little clue as to what it could be, where it had come from, and where it might have gone. The image was taken by NASA's Cassini probe as it circled around Titan, Saturn's largest moon, and one of the most varied landscapes of the solar system besides our own planet Earth. Larger than Mercury and over 1 billion kilometers from Earth, Titan is the only moon in our solar system with an atmosphere composition similar to Earth's, but with a much higher surface pressure. It is also the only place in the entire solar system other than Earth that has liquids, as its surface is made up of liquid hydrocarbons flowing in rivers, lakes, and oceans that can reach hundreds of kilometers across and hundreds of meters deep next to rolling dunes and mountains. It was in one of these lakes that the white blob appeared in the northern hemisphere of Titan. The lake in question is called Ligeia Mare and is estimated to be over 150 meters deep, with the strange formation measuring around 19 kilometers wide and 9 kilometers deep and materializing about 10 kilometers off the shore. Interestingly, the mysterious figure was absent in satellite images taken just 16 days after the initial photo. Although Titan's lakes are generally totally smooth due to the lack of wind in its atmosphere, it is thought that the formation could be initial deep sea waves as Titan's northern hemisphere begins to slowly rotate closer to the Sun. Other theories include floating icebergs, a rush of bubbles or matter being released from deep within the stagnant sea, or something suspended in the liquid below the surface. However, as the formation was absent from subsequent photos taken of the location, scientists are forced to theorize based on just one image, meaning that unless it mysteriously reappears again, we may likely never know exactly what it was that was changing on such a static planet. What made the discovery so interesting is that planetary scientists believe that if there truly is life somewhere outside of Earth's atmosphere, then they will find it lurking deep in the lakes, rivers, and oceans of Titan. Because of the interesting composition of Titan, there is a possibility that any existing life on the surface of this moon could be very chemically different from life on Earth. So scientists study any changes or outlying formations on the surface of Titan very closely. Although this discovery left us with more questions than answers, perhaps it is the next step in discovering life outside of our Earth. A mysterious metallic mass on the dark side of the moon. You're probably aware that the moon is rather large, but how big is it really? To give you some perspective, Experts recently discovered a mysterious metallic mass on the dark side of the moon that is approximately 5 times the size of Hawaii's Big Island. The mass is better described as an enormous crater that was imprinted into the surface of the moon billions of years ago. It's believed to have happened when the moon's surface has cooled enough for the crater to leave its mark. Now you may be wondering how on earth did NASA discover this mass in the first place. They were able to use data from their gravity recovery and interior laboratory mission, as well as the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter topography. They were reviewing their previous calculations of the crust of the crater's thickness and density when they stumbled upon the formerly unknown mass. From the surface it isn't obvious, but it's dragging down the landscape and is known as a central depression. This information has led to information surrounding the interior of the moon, and scientists are at work to unravel even more. Understanding how this mysterious mass came to be could be the beginning of truly understanding how the moon was formed, as well as provide information about how other celestial bodies grow. There are already multiple trips to the moon in the planning stages, and this area has become a new target. Getting up close and personal with the unknown mass is the best way to provide experts with more information. The mission had previously collected new information surrounding the gravitational field to understand what's happening on the surface and underground. Whilst they've been able to gather this data, there's still a lot we don't know yet. With the information experts currently hold, there could be 2 explanations for this unusual mass. One possibility that when the moon's ancient magma oceans were cooling, dense oxides could have formed, creating the mass we see today. With that being said, scientists aren't sure that would have happened on that layer of the crater. Looking for another possible explanation, they reasoned that the mass could be the result of an ancient impactor. It's believed that the impact could have created a hole that then partially filled with molten rock. NASA still can't be certain as to how the mass appeared. Will help the experts in exploration of the mysterious mass and potentially collect evidence to answer the question. This discovery has only led humankind to think more about the creation of all planets in our solar system, considering how small rocks and foreign objects most likely smash into each other, slowly creating larger rocks. It's easy to feel lost in it all, but we're on the road to closing the gap and finding what we're looking for. Instant millionaire when football-sized meteorite crashes through. Indonesian coffin maker Joshua Hatagalung was furnishing coffins when a cosmic rock the size of a football came smashing through the tin roof of his North Sumatran home. It fell from the sky with such force that it burrowed another 6 inches through the floor and beneath the house. The sound was so loud it caused parts of the house to shake, and the rock was still warm to the touch. When he pulled it from the earth, the Tagalung hoped it was a good sign from above and immediately updated his Facebook status saying, "Suddenly a black rock fell from the sky, but whatever it is, hopefully a good sign for our family." He could not have possibly predicted what an incredible blessing had just come crashing into his home. He was unaware of the rock's value, so he decided to get it inspected and appraised by professionals. Discovered that his cosmic rock was considered one of the most valuable materials known to scientists. While most meteorites are valued between 50 cents and $5 a gram, there are a select few that can sell for $1,000 a gram or more. As it would turn out, the Tagalung's was the latter. His rock was estimated to be about 4.5 billion years old, making it one of the most significant meteorites to date. It was identified as CM1-2 carbonaceous chondrite, an extremely rare meteor type that is said to contain the clues to unlocking the creation of life in the universe. His meteorite was valued at $857 per gram, but her Tagalung had no intention of selling the meteorite in pieces. Jared Collins, a United States-based meteorite expert, heard about the rock from halfway around the world and ended up buying it for $1.85 million or 1.3 million pounds. Thomas Jamaluddin, head of the National Aeronautics and Space Agency in Lapan, Indonesia, claims the statistical improbability of the rock landing in a residential area is staggering. More often than not, these meteorites crash into the sea or get lost in forests or deserts. Luckily for Joshua, it landed directly in his home, and later 3 more fragments were found in the fields nearby. The father of 3 plans to use the funds to build a church and would love to add a 4th child to his family as well. Scientists have seen a mystery orbit in space that could solve a puzzle about black holes. Black holes have gripped the minds of great intellectuals for decades, yet exciting revelations are still occurring, giving us more clues to the constantly growing puzzle. Recent discoveries have given more answers to the mass gap. Scientists have previously operated under the assumption that the maximum mass of a celestial body that may develop into a black hole was 2.5 solar masses or 2.5 times the mass of the Sun, and that the minimum mass of a black hole was 5 solar masses. This left an uncertain gap and the space between 2.5 and 5 solar masses that was not accounted for and so became known as the mass gap. Until recently, the mass gap was a relatively theoretical issue as no objects that fell within this class had been discovered. An object discovered in August 2019 reported on in June 2020 has been found to weigh 2.6 solar masses, prompting the question, is this the lightest black hole yet to be discovered or the heaviest neutron star? Professor Vicky Caligara of Northwestern University commented that, "We've been waiting decades to solve this mystery." She emphasizes that regardless as to the ultimate class of the object in the mass gap, the signals picked up that alerted physicists to the discovery were created through the merging of the strange object with a black hole at a staggering 23 solar masses. This prompted a series of gravitational waves throughout space, which were detected in our observatories on Earth. LIGO referred to this signal as highly unusual, prompting further study and research. The 2 bodies interact in an unexpected way, shedding an element of uncertainty on the once presumed to be accurate understanding of black hole formations. More observations and data collection will need to take place in order to confirm this. This information will presumably be gathered through the use of light-based telescopes. The questions that are now being tackled following the discovery of this object at 2.6 solar are: why has it been so difficult to locate items within the mass gap if they are out there? Is the mass gap real at all? Are the measurements for the mass gap incorrect, and how are neutron stars and black holes truly formed? Has our understanding of this celestial phenomena changed? The light emissions, whilst limited due to the object becoming engulfed by the black hole, are being tracked from the Virgo and LIGO observatories. Though the apparent destruction means only a minor observation could be noted. As technology advances, we can only hope to discover more objects within space like this as we strive to ask more questions and gain more answers. From the exciting revelation of new items to discoveries that make us question what we already know, the searching and exploring of space is never ending. We can only hope to find answers to the puzzles out there and continue to make our way through the universe. NASA launched an atomic clock into space. Atomic clocks have been hailed as the superior method of timekeeping since the 1950s, due to their incredible accuracy even over extremely long periods of time. Where pendulums and quartz crystal clocks develop discrepancies and can vary between devices, atomic clocks use the frequency of electrons vibrating back and forth when exposed to radio waves, which is an almost impossibly precise method of measurement, and one that allows GPS satellites to pinpoint locations with nearly complete accuracy. These GPS satellites work by using an atomic clock to measure the amount of time it takes for a signal to travel between 2 points, a necessarily precise science in space travel where the difference of a single second can mean either landing on Mars or ending up hundreds of thousands of miles away. However, one limitation of the atomic clock is space. Each clock paired with the GPS satellite is about the size of a refrigerator and must remain on Earth when navigators use its measurements to triangulate the location of spacecraft and then communicate instructions to the astronauts on board. It is a time-consuming process and limits the distance of missions, as spacecraft must remain within range of the GPS satellites and Earth. An onboard atomic clock would mean that the astronauts could calculate their own trajectory, rather than relying on communication from Earth for direction. However, the current design of an atomic clock is too bulky and will not stand up to the changing environment of space travel, which limits the possibilities of astronauts exploring deep space. Until recently, there has been no reliable method for keeping time while outside of Earth's gravitational pull. In June of 2019, NASA placed their newly developed deep space atomic clock on a spacecraft to orbit Earth for a year. The Deep Space Atomic Clock was developed at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California, and has been in experimental orbit since June as they test its accuracy over extended periods of time outside of Earth's controlled environment. If the timekeeping remains unaffected by the conditions of space, the Deep Space Atomic Clock will be the first atomic clock with the design and functionality to pioneer expeditions in the cosmos. That the clock, which is powered through mercury ion technology, is 50 times more stable than current atomic clocks on GPS satellites and will lose 1 second every 10 million years. If it upholds these measurements as it orbits on the spacecraft, independent space travel could be much closer than we think. Increasing technology has allowed us to increase our understanding of the galaxy and has answered many questions that were previously thought unanswerable. The longer we observe the cosmos around us and the further we venture into those mysterious depths, the more we realize how very little we truly understand and grasp about the mechanics of space. Perhaps one day we will be able to locate alien life or even establish colonies on other planets. But even then, we may never know exactly how many more mysteries lie hidden within the immeasurable expanse of the Milky Way and beyond. But what do you make of these fascinating space discoveries?